So, good morning everyone. I'm Joe Carly Lima, B Stream 2. Especially to you, sir. Good morning, Mr. Anthony Gamali. Today, I will report the Chapter 2, Nationalism and Patriotism. So, basic concept of nationalism and patriotism. Nationalism is an ideology and movement defined by promoting the interest of particular nation, in particular with the aim of acquiring and maintaining the nation's sovereignty over its country of origin. So they promoting and interest the nation in particular and aiming acquiring and maintaining the nation's sovereignty. So Smith so the origin of Smith by in the year 2010. Nationalism claims that each nation should regulate itself free from outside intervention, that a nation in natural idea political basis. So nationalism claims outside intervention, that nation is naturally and legal and idea political basis, and the nation is one, and the nation is the only legitimate source of political authority. In Finlayson 2014, it also aims to build and maintain a single nation identity based on shared social characteristics such as culture. So they base so aims to build a social characteristics such as cultures, language and religions, politics and beliefs in a distinctive shared history to promote national unity to solidarity. Yak 2012. Nationalism therefore seeks to preserve the encourage of nations and traditions, culture and culture revivals have been connected to nation. So our culture is connected to nationalist movement. It also fosters pride in domestic accomplishment and strongly associated by patriotism. So our culture and nationalism associate with strongly associate with patriotism. Trianda Failido in 1998. Nationalism is often paired with other ideologies, for instance conservatism or socialism. Finlayson 20 in 2014. Types of nationalism. Nationalism can be expressed along several ethnic culture. So they express the ethnic culture, religious or ideological line. These self definitions of country are used to classify distinct kinds of nationalism, although these categories are not mutually exclusive, and many nationalist movements combine to different degrees some of all these components. So some others is combining their differing degrees. So number one, ethnic nationalism. A country is described from prior generation in terms ethnicity and descent. It also involves the concept of shared culture among groups members and a shared language. So what they have in culture, and our language, they sharing to each other. So the nation's membership hereditary. The test derives political legitimacy from its status as the ethnic group's homeland and from its obligation to safeguard and partially domestic group, a group to promote its finally social life. The word ethnon the word ethno-nationalism is used only to a relationship of nationalists who support the distinct ideology along this line. The more generic word is ethnic nationalism, and it's used by nationalists who hold such as views in formal, instinct, instinct, instinctive, or unsystematic manner. So, ethno-nationalism. The word ethno-nationalism is to explicit the ideology. Generic word generic word ethnic nationalism. So they combining the ethnic and nationalism. So number 2, civic nationalism. The taste derives political legitimacy from its citizens' active involvement and extent to which it reflects the will of individuals. So they involve the extent of the will of individuals. Civic nationalism lies within the tradition of nationalism, liberalism, but its contrast with ethnic nationalism as a type of nationalism. So they contrast the ethnic nationalism for a type of nationalism. Civic nation member is regarded to be voluntary. The growth of representative democracy is nations such as the United States and France was effective civil nations values. So this civic nations membership by growth of prospective democracy by nations on the United States and France was effective to civil national values. So number 3, expansionist nationalism. A radical from imperialism that includes independent patriotic feelings with a faith in expansionism, generally through military aggressions. The word was coined in the late 19th century as European powers indulged in the scramble for Africa in the name of domestic glory, but the most closely linked military governments in 20th century. So, patriotic feelings, a faith expansion by through military aggression. The word was coined in 19th century in the European powers. So this includes scramble for Africa. The name of domestic glory was closed by military government in 20th century. So number 4, romantic nationalism, otherwise known as organic nationalism. So the organic nationalism and identity nationalism is the form of ethnic nationalism which derives political legitimacy as a result and expressions of the nation's natural. It's based on presence of historical ethnic culture that meets of romantic ideal. So they they base the presence of romantic ideal. So number 5, cultural nationalism. Country described by shared by culture, not solely civic or ethnic. Chinese nationalism is an instance of culture nationalism partially due to China's many national minorities. Membership the nations is either completely voluntary nor hereditary. So the culture of nationalism is a member of nations completely voluntary or hereditary. However, the tradition of cultures can be more readily integrated into lives in the persons, particularly in the persons can obtain ability at an early point of her own lives. So number 6, world nationalism. This third world nationalism nationalist feeling are the outcome of opposition to colonial rule to survive maintain domestic identity. So these nationalist feelings by outcome opposition to maintaining domestic identity. So number 7, liberal nationalism. A kind of nationalism lately defended by political philosophers who think a non-xenophobic form of nationalism compatible with liberal values of liberty, tolerance, equality, and individual rights can be exist. So the philosophers of non-xenophobic form by equality and individual rights to exist. It is asserted that in order to lead meaningful independent life, people need a national identity, and those liberal democracies need domestic identity to work correctly. So the meaningful of independent people, they need a domestic identity to work correctly. Liberal nationalists often defend the importance of domestic identity by stating that people need a domestic identity to lead meaningful independent life. So giving a meaningful life and independent. So number 8, religious nationalism. Nationalism connecting to a specific religious faith, church, or affiliation. It can be seen that a shared religious contribution. So this religious nationalism is connecting by faith, church, or affiliation. So patriotism or nation pride is a sense of love, dedication, and attachment of country and alliance with other people who share the same impressions. So patriotism is sense of love to share the same impression. This attach can be mixtures of many distinct emotions, including ethnic cultures, political or historical elements related to one's own country. So the mixtures attachment can be by distinct or emotions. The ethnic cultures related to one's own country, so they relate their own country to by culture, political, historical. It is predominant virtue link of a nation's love with greater emphasis on values and beliefs. One who is patriotic will be willing to offer any sacrifice to his nation. So one patriotic willing to offer or sacrifice his life for nation will never live alone. enthusiastically. For example, for the sake of his country, a soldier makes ultimate sacrifice of his life for no other reason can be a citizen of nations. Patriotism in dedication to one nation. In sense, patriotism is a sense of attach and dedication to a country, nations, or political community or country love. So, the example, the soldier is died in that country, so political community or just love their country. The English word patriot is the first known in the Elizabethan period, originated from Latin patriota via Middle French, meaning a countryman. Finally, from Greek patriots, meaning from the same nations, meaning fatherland. The abstract noun of patriotism appears in the early of 18th century. By adhering to religion, patriotism can be reinforced. This reverse of the church taste, who saw patriotism and religious as analogous and opposing force, Michael Billing and Jean Bentek. So, by adhering nation's religion patriotism, the reverse of church, states, and separations, by enlightened intellectuals who shows the patriotisms and religion as analogous and exposing force. So Michael Billing and Jean Elstein both assert that it's hard to discern the distinction between patriotism and faith, and depends heavily on the attitude of the person who does the label Billing. So Michael and Jean asserted hard discern and distinction between patriotism and faith. So, kinds of patriotism. Patriotism of duty. This includes fidelity to one's nation through material acts. This is military service patriotism, and so this patriotism is by military service and other self-sacrifice, and they sacrifice his life for this kind of patriotism. This is where patriotism become embodied, and its idealistics praiseworthy particular actions. So number 2, patriotism of affections. This patriotism of heart. It is about one's internal desires for his country well-being. The patriotism of affections can be seen in the patriotism of duty. So this kind of patriotism is well-being and external desire of his country. Duty, but does not necessarily result in it. One can truly love his country and yet be a coward, just as one can theoretically fulfill a patriotic duty and yet feel apathetic about the country's welfare. So number 3, patriotism of manner. This customs patriotism, written and unwritten. The patriotism manners is place one's hand over the heart during national anthem. It can be performed by anyone without actually needing affections or duty. patriotism, while the above types of patriotism. So this means is written and handwritten by manners of hand over the heart doing national anthem. So example, our country. So Daniel. So